request the online participants that if they want to speak, to use the raise hand mechanism to indicate that you would like to speak. We will observe a minute silence. I request everyone present here to kindly rise. We gather here today in memory of Professor K.R. Parthasarathy, known as KRP all over the world in the mathematics statistics community, one of India's most renowned mathematician of our time, who passed away in Delhi on June 14 at age 87. He was born in 1936 at Chennai into a humble Hindu family. He completed his Bachelor of Arts Honours course in mathematics from the Ramakrishna Mission Vivekananda College in Chennai before entering the famous Research and Training Center at ISI Kolkata in 1956. He received the Institute's first PhD degree in 1962. In ISI Kolkata, he came under the influence of leading statisticians such as Professor C.R. Rao and Professor R.R. Bahadur, and worked along with fellow students then, Professor V.S. Vardarajan, Professor Ranga Rao, Professor S.R.S. Bharadan. Under KRP's leadership, this group of 4 started studying and working on theoretical probability, which was then a very new branch of mathematics. Their fundamental contributions soon made them famous all over the world as the Gang of 4. Later, KRP was invited to spend a year at the Steklov Institute in Moscow to work with Professor A.N. Kolmogorov, one of the greatest mathematicians of the 20th century. KRP had great admiration for Professor Kolmogorov, both as a great mathematician and as a human being. In 1966, KRP went to UK and held faculty positions at University of Sheffield and Manchester, but soon he returned to India, and after brief teaching at IIT Bombay and at the Bombay University, he joined the then newly started center, the first center outside Kolkata of ISI in Delhi. And soon in 1976. Soon after, he became the head of the Delhi center. He was the second head of this center and served this center as head during 1979 to 1982. I think I will not be wrong to say that for several years, he was one of the central pillars of Delhi Center and undoubtedly one of the best known faculty members. In 1980s, along with Robin Hudson of University of Nottingham, KRP laid down the foundation of a subject that came to be known as quantum stochastic calculus or the Hudson-Parthasarathy calculus. This attached a lot of followers, and for several years, ISI Delhi was the mecca of the subject. Apart from his pioneering research work in diverse areas like classical and quantum probability, stochastic processes, information theory, group representations, and foundations of quantum mechanics, KRP is also well known for several books and lecture notes. In particular, generation of students and scholars have benefited from his famous book on probability measures on metric spaces. After retirement, on reaching 60 in 1996, KRP continued to remain active both in his teaching and in research till the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. He came regularly to his office here at ISI Delhi, where he was Professor of Emeritus. It is a measure of his enthusiasm and dedication that at this stage of his life, he immersed himself in a newly developing subject of quantum information, wrote several papers and lecture notes on it, and taught it in several others, young and old. His last publication is of 2022. While in total, he has published more than 160 research papers in leading journals of mathematics and mathematical physics. In his long career, he has produced a total of 7 PhD, out of which 2 are currently our faculty members in the institute. One of them is in the StatMat unit here in Delhi. I will end with a short story of my own interaction with him. It was back in 2008 when I joined the institute and was a young faculty then in that StatMath unit. One morning, I was working in my office on my desktop, I remember, and it was prior to the 11 o'clock break, and I hear a soft knock on my door. Thinking that it is a MStat student whom I was teaching then, I said in my usual way, "Come in, please," and KRP entered. I knew by then that Professor Parthasarathy had a heart problem a couple of months back, and the doctors recommended him not to take the stairs too often. So I quickly jumped on my feet and said that, "Sir, you could have called me." Professor Parthasarathy, I remember, showed me that he's carrying a piece of paper, a copy of some journal, perhaps. And he said, I was in the library and I was going through the newly arrived journals, and I found one particular work is very interesting. And I want to discuss it with you because you probably be knowing about it more. I was intrigued as well as a bit scared, because if KRP is asking to your office and wants to discuss a mathematics, I was scared that whether I can really contribute much. So he handed me the Xerox which he was carrying. And when I looked at the title page, I was speechless. He was carrying recently published in that year a paper of mine. And I looked at him and he said that it is only you who would be able to explain it better to me. And for the next 2 hours, I explained the details to him, which he very patiently heard and asked many questions. Frankly speaking, it kept a lasting impression on me. I don't think that I needed to explain the mathematics there to KRP. It was the encouragement which I received as a young faculty that a person like KRP would come to your office to discuss a work of yours which he has found in the library, is also a teaching which I keep with myself. I send my deepest condolence to his family, friends, students, and colleagues, to all of us. May his soul rest in peace. I request people who are online, perhaps, they may speak first, and then people who have gathered here, you may please come up and share your memories.
This is Kalyan Sinha here. I happen to be in US, so it is about 1 o'clock in the morning. And so my abiding memory of ISI Delhi is centered around KRP. He was instrumental in my return to India and joining ISI Delhi. And right from the day one, his enthusiasm and intensity was infectious. I have lost count of the number of seminars that he and I had organized in myriads of areas of mathematics, some related to areas of immediate interest and some not so. Initially, I was a bit reluctant to move into quantum probability, which has just begun to evolve. That was mid-1980s with KRP and Hudson and few others taking a pioneering role. KRP would often just walk in to my office room, which was just next door to him, and would pose a problem on the blackboard and we'll have brief discussion, then he would leave. And I would not have too much interest in the problem he posed at that time. So this went on for several years. But then I started taking more interest, and beginning 1985, I think our collaboration started in right earnest. Though we had already written a couple of things together, one on Feynman integrals and the other in the C.R. Rao volume, a kind of precursor to quantum stochastic calculus, which was to come. Then the subject exploded, as Antar briefly referred to, and that is now history. We had intense collaboration till KRP retired, and I started finding interest in some other areas, particularly geometry in quantum mechanics. And then my sojourn to ISI Kolkata during 2000 and 2005 started, and our collaboration decreased. And my interest also moved to different areas. But the central theme of my academic journey in India, beginning 1979, was deeply influenced and shaped by KRP. And I was fortunate to have met him at his home about 2 months back when I was in Delhi last. The whole world of probability, the quantum probability community, Indian mathematics, and finally myself will miss very much this giant of mathematical personality, KRP.
Yeah, so as Kalyan just said, KRP was a giant. We have all tried to emulate him in some small measure, but difficult to reach his standards. I'll just relate 2 or 3 anecdotes. Several years ago, 1 year, we did not have any admission to MStat, and KRP had an itch, more or less, to teach. There were no students that year admitted, so he went and taught a course in SQC that year. He had to teach. So that is something I was very impressed with. Another story about his teaching, as all of us saw, he was never late for a class. Students were occasionally late, and I think in this batch of students, some of them felt embarrassed that KRP was coming there before them. So they started coming 5 minutes early. And that induced KRP to come 10 minutes early. So he was there before the students. Of course, this cycle would have to end somewhere. So the class began earlier than it was scheduled to. Third story, in 2011, there was a conference in France to which we were invited. And somehow the work I was doing got related to Rao-Fisher metric, about which I had not known much. So I requested KRP to give me and Priyanka a short tutorial on the Rao-Fisher metric. So not only did he give a 1 hour or 2 hours lecture, he came prepared with notes which he handed us, that you can read this in his beautiful handwriting. I would be very happy if a student, PhD student or MStat student, was to take an assignment that seriously. So that showed his dedication to anything mathematical. So it's very difficult for us to emulate what he did, the standards he set. We have tried hard, but not reached there. On the last day of his life, it so happened just accidentally that I phoned his home. I was talking to him roughly once in a month, and I had a long discussion with Shama. KRP was asleep at that time. And just 2 hours later, I got a call from Ramesh that he had expired. Certainly, he was a pillar of ISI and of our lives. We'll miss him deeply. Thank you.
See, I heard of Professor KRP's demise while I was traveling in a car from Tiruvannamalai to Bangalore. ISI lost a highly recognized academician and internationally acclaimed probabilist. On a personal note, I have lost my guru as I learned mathematics at ISI from him during my MStat days, and he was my advisor in academic matters. during my tenure at ISI over a span of 44 years as a student, professor, and later director of ISI. My association with him continued even after I retired from ISI in 2004. He was the first speaker for the memorial lecture I instituted in University of Hyderabad in memory of my parents. His dedication for what he did in academic work need no mentioning here. It's known to every student who underwent training at ISI. I learned the art of teaching from him with preparing lecture notes for every class meeting and later bringing out the same in the form of a book. So I miss him so much that, as soon as something happened, I wrote to a few of my friends expressing my sorrow, and several of them responded. I would like to read some of those messages in this meeting. This is from T.J. Rao, who was our colleague and he retired now. He says, so sad to hear the news. I was with him at Manchester during 1968 to 71. Tata Subbarao and I spent several weekends at their place. Didn't miss my home. Later at Delhi campus, Lakshmi and I enjoyed their hospitality during our short visits. A great loss for all of us. We miss KRP. Then this next one is from Professor B.V. Rao. Very, very sad to hear about it. Genius and bright star, always excited to lecture and inspire, apart from the diverse research contributions and books. I wish ISI maintained the old system of lecturing and bringing out mimeograph notes best suited for Indian universities cost-wise and content-wise and exposition-wise. I learned a lot from them. Whenever he came to Calcutta for council meetings, we always requested for a lecture and he obliged. In fact, he used to say he's coming mainly for the lecture, adding pungent comments about the council. This is from Professor P.V. Rao. This is from Professor T. Krishna Kumar from USA. It is shocking to me to hear the news. In April, I emailed to him and inquired about his health. It was a routine question between seniors. He replied on April 17th, quote, my health is reasonably all right for my age, unquote. I requested him and Varadan to write about the life of the famous 4 mathematicians of ISI. Krishna Kumar adds, he was also our teacher and took a few classes. But in recent years, I had noted that the special bond between Dr. Rao and KRP. I brought them together in a Zoom session for Dr. Rao's 101st birthday. When Dr. Rao saw KRP, his face suddenly lighted up, saying, KRP. KRP then presented a paper he wrote on quantum physics to him in person. He is an adorable person, and it's a great loss to all those whose lives he touched. My condolences, Shyama and their sons. And the next one is from Vikas Sinha. It is indeed a devastating news. Many memories and a few unforgettable incidences are floating in my mind. So KRP was the sectional president, and that is because I was the sectional recorder. We were given accommodation in the same room in a guest house. I get up around 5 o'clock and a low voice started chanting, Joda, Joda, He Dharmasya Glanir Bhavati Bharato in 100% Bengali. There comes a voice, because no, it is not with Bengali pronunciation. You can't do that. You should be in pure Sanskrit like Yoda, He Dharmasya and so on. We had good early morning sessions in pure Sanskrit pronunciation of the slokas. I joined ISI Calcutta in 1979. By then, KRP was a permanent faculty in Stat Math Delhi unit. We used to meet in Calcutta, Delhi, and exchange nice charts. Very sweet memories. Undoubtedly a mathematician of the tallest order, KRP liked me as one of his many professional younger brothers. It's a devastating news indeed. May his soul rest in eternal peace. That's Vikas Sinha. Then S. Jamalamadaka. We know him as J.S. Rao. He is also known as S. Rao Jamalamadaka. Dear BLSP and friends, it is certainly very sad news for all of us, but to lighten the grief a bit, I will mention a couple of anecdotes about him that stuck with me. During 64-65, I was in the second year of the then MStat specializing in what was called advanced mathematics and probability. M. Srihari, A.R. Rao, and P. Narasimham were the only other registered students, although several others audited the lectures by Varadarajan, Rangarao, and KRP. KRP was just then writing his book on, and it was assumed that there would be no lecture. I didn't go there. Following day, when we went to the lecture, KRP said to us, "What is it to me to any of you if it is Christmas? Research and teaching do not take a holiday," encapsulating his intellectual spirit. Much later, I was at a conference at Delhi during a time when a search for the ISI director was on. In a small group, someone said to him, "J.S. Rao is the first BStat, MStat, and PhD of the ISI. And KRP says to me, we want to make you the first BStat, MStat, PhD, and director of ISI." And was really serious. But I was too settled in USA by then and take on that crucial and difficult task, even if it were offered to me. I had many other pleasant interactions with him throughout later on. Besides being a great academician, he's an outstanding teacher, a very generous man with a generous spirit. May his soul rest in peace. The next one is from Hira Kaul of Michigan State University. Indeed, the passing away of KRP is a great loss to the profession of mathematics. I have had good fortune of using his excellent monograph on probability measures and metric spaces many times. The next one is from Professor Prawal Chaudhary. It is very sad news indeed. I did not know him personally before 2000 when I became a faculty at ISI. He was always a very supportive senior colleague. Many of us enjoyed talking with him and hearing several stories from his life. Then one of his students and my senior, T.R. Rao, who is heading a big company in America now. I'm sorry to hear the sad news. Though I did not follow his illustrious career after I left ISI, I remember his moral support I received when I just joined ISI in 1959. As a senior researcher, he took time to chat with me and inquire about my progress and offered to help me. I find that very refreshing. Arni Srinivasa Rao, he is from Georgia, Augusta University, Georgia. This is sad news to the ISI community to lose Dr. KRP. I attended his theoretical quantum computing semester course during 2002 to 2003 while I was a DST math fellow at IISc Bangalore. Met 2 times very briefly in ISI Kolkata campus when I was faculty there. He visited with his wife and was cheerful. Last time I saw Dr. KRP was during Dr. Rao's 101st online birthday meeting in 2021. I invited him to write a chapter in the field of probability. This was the special issue that I guest edited in 2022 for Journal of Indian Institute of Science. We had an email exchange, but he gave up this project as it depends on someone in Bangalore to type, as he has had poor vision and lives in Delhi. He is well respected within ISI and IISc MathStat communities. My condolences to his family and friends. And finally, Ravi, he is from University of Mysore. A very sad news, sir. I have had many fond memories of him during my short stay at ISI Delhi as NBHM PDF. So my condolences to Shyama and the family. And I don't know what else to speak at this time about KRP. I miss him very much. Thank you.
It was a shock when I heard about KRP's passing away. I don't know what to say. And KRP was as we all say, he was an institution. And as I wrote to Sean, she has lived with the privilege. She has had the privilege of living with the legend. And so I wouldn't like to say anything more other than KRP has enriched the lives of everybody who has passed through the ISIs. and I among them am infinitely grateful for all the contact that we have had. Thank you.
Okay, so this is Raja Rambat. Says, okay, the KRP has of course inspired, influenced many people, but for me, it's a lot more. Sort of, he defined my life, so I owe my life to him. So we were BStat and MStat students in Calcutta. So some of us decided that we would like to learn more mathematics, and we go to Delhi because we had heard about KRP, KB Sinha, Bhatia, RLK, and all. So that's what we did. So we went to Delhi and we had wonderful courses, all these stalwarts, and we had many years. I did MStat and then PhD there. So many years in Delhi, and I can never forget that in my life. So, as I said, he defined my life at least. So, like doing PhD means many people say that you don't have research problems, that, it's difficult to get a research problem. But with KRP, it was never the case. So, any new lecture seminar comes, he will come meticulously, take seminars and will ask questions, and will later ask questions to us. So that this is a problem we should solve. So every day there used to be a new problem. Okay. So choosing a problem was a difficult thing rather than having problems. Every day there was some new thing. If any new topic comes up, you get excited and say, think about that and forget about what happened previously. So that used to be the case. So it was hard, but very, very inspiring, and learned a lot from him. So not only mathematics, but also life. So I'll be brief, but say like, I remember once he was never fond of these formality census things. There was some operator theory conference, and there was inaugural ceremony with some vice chancellor coming and garlanding and some. So he was sick of it. He said, when his talk came, he said, all analysis conferences just should begin with let H be a Hilbert space. Nothing more is needed. So let us just begin, let H be a Hilbert space, nothing else. So that was like that. So, and well, he is no more, but his memory will always be there. I use his books almost every day. So all the mathematics it does. And I also seen that wherever I go, if I have to introduce myself, the easiest way is to say that I am a student of KRP. So then everybody knows. So it is a convenient thing. So yeah. Anyway, so another thing I remember, like you say that because he is so active from morning to evening. So you would say every day you should prove at least one lemma. So that used to be statement. So I think at least one lemma a day. So, yeah. So anyway, it's very difficult to live up to that. But as I said, we will always be in our memory. We use his books, as life has influenced us so much. So again, my condolences to Shama and his family. So I stop here.
Yes, this is Ajit Iqbal Singh. You know, Professor Parthasarathy was a mathematician. He could teach you mathematics in his office, in a small seminar room, in a big hall, and even in the corridors so effectively that it remains in your mind all your life. And I learned a lot from him. I first heard him in Delhi University in 1970s, and I became a student in heart of my heart, and I have remained a student till now. And he will continue to give me inspiration for my work even now when he resides in the heaven and in people's hearts. I learned a lot from him, and you can go to him anytime and he would go straight to the board and start speaking and teaching you in the most effective way. And his work is so remarkable and it will live forever. And Parthasarathy will live forever and will make us learn more and more mathematics. I bow to the great mathematician K.R. Parthasarathy.
As like many students who worked under Professor KRP, my life and my career was also to a certain extent built by him. I don't want to say too many things because I have so many memories. I don't know which one is better to tell, but I can tell 2-3 instances. The first time I met him, I think he himself forgot it after that, was in actually not in ISI, but rather in the Vivekananda College, CMI, in Chennai. Somehow we were lured to attend some sort of a meeting with something, and we went there, and it turned out to be a very non-mathematical meeting with about somebody's anniversary and so on. And KRP was really irritated after some time, and he scolded me that being a PhD student, how can you waste your time attending all these things? Of course, I couldn't tell him anything more. He didn't know me even he didn't even know that what I work on. But he just he immediately said that no, as a student you should work on the mathematics and don't concentrate on anything else in this non-mathematical object. My interaction formally started with Sir in a workshop which happened, the interface between functional analysis and quantum information theory in IMSC in 2011-12, organized by Professor Sundar. I think he can remember it. Now, KRP at that time was losing his eyesight, and so morning sessions were all packed up with his with lectures, and afternoon sessions were for the discussions. So KRP was by that time losing his eyesight and couldn't take notes very efficiently. So what it used to happen that within 1 or 2 days that I would take a very meticulous note, and after an hour of lunch, I would go, after he takes a little break, take some rest, I would go to his office and stayed there till evening, and we would actually go through the whole thing there. And it was a very amazing things that we learned. I learned operator spaces and operator systems and a good amount of information, quantum information theory from there. So there was one particular person whom I would not name, but Professor Sundar already knows. So he was explaining his things, and KRP was kept on asking that why did he took this step? The step is correct, but why he did that thing? And every day something, okay, why he worked on this step, then next step, and so on. Then he used to ask the next question, why he thought about this thing would happen. And eventually he would say something after a half an hour or so that there is a theorem something like this, and probably he thought about that and saw some technique which was there in some paper which he thought about that and came up. So in fact I learned a lot, and later of course I worked with him. It was a great loss for me. I couldn't control my tear when I last time heard him talking. He lost his voice. Delhi to meet him. I couldn't meet him because of his infection, and may his soul rest in peace. But just before leaving, I have one more point to say, that one of my an acquaintance, Professor Francisco Buscemi from Nagoya University, heard when he visited in Italy for the very last time, and he fondly remembered him. And after his death, he sent me a message, condolence message, which he told me to convey to his family, which I have done. But there are so many people who were fondly remembered him and sent me this in this way. So thank you for everyone, and may his soul rest in.
It's a pleasure to be here on this sad occasion with so many friends. I should say at the outset, in the UK, KRP is universally known as Partha, so I may on occasion use that other nickname for him. I've known him since the 1980s. So, like Raja, I've known him the span of my almost the span of my academic career. And I've known Raja for the same. My first visit to India was when Raja was a student. I'd like to echo Sundar's very eloquent words of infinite gratitude for the contact with KRP, and also Raja's words on the excitement that KRP generated, always generated, at the blackboard, in the corridor, over tea. Am I audible from the UK?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. So my collaboration with KRP began on one of his many visits to the Mathematics Institute at Warwick, hosted. All these were hosted alternately by David Aylworthy in probability and David Evans in operator algebras. I was at Nottingham, which is close by to Warwick. My second collaboration was when he and I were both visiting Luigi Accardi in Rome in the summer of 1986. My third collaboration was when it really deepened, when I held a Royal Society Indian National Science Academy Fellowship at the Delhi Centre of ISI, 86 to 87. And in 1994, I successfully proposed KRP as Hardy Lecturer for the following year. And this led to a fourth stage of our collaboration, which was based in Nottingham, because KRP was based in Nottingham for his Hardy Lecture Tour. There may have been a fifth stage, but that was prevented by KRP's heart attack in 2006, after which he did not travel abroad, but he was due to visit me that year. I subsequently visited him in hospital and was very moved by his composure and the light way in which he made reference to his brush with death then, 2006. As a young researcher, I was in awe of KRP, of course, and I'd like to share an anecdote on that. In Rome, I gave a talk on martingale representation in the quantum domain by stochastic integrals in terms of the creation, preservation, and annihilation processes of the Hudson Parthasarathy quantum stochastic calculus. Combination of my thesis work and my first collaboration with KRP. Following my talk in Rome, Geoffrey Watson, who was also visiting Accardi at the time, took me aside in a kindly avuncular way. He said that I did not need to show such deference to KRP in my talk, as he did. He did not need the acknowledgement. He was universally known by then, of course, and it could shroud my own achievement. Of course, I remained in awe. However, I began a trajectory of better containing my awe. All of my collaborations with KRP have been deeply rewarding for many reasons. Very soon after I arrived to take up my fellowship in 1986, Partha asked me to chalk and talk, explain the modification to convolution products and integral sum kernel operators on Guichard-Fock space. that I'd been working on with Hans Maassen and Paul-André Meyer. I don't remember how long that took, whether it was 1 or 2 hours, but having done this, Partha immediately explained, we must do a Bargmann-style analysis of the possible multiplier deformations. Much of the joyous year I spent in India was devoted to our collaboration on that program. And here is a small anecdote. At times of fast progress, it would be reported back to me that KRP had been muttering complaints that I kept disappearing practice dance instead of working overtime on our developing cohomology of power sets. I was learning the rudiments of Kathak at the time. The last strand of our collaboration was on the generation of completely positive stochastic flows, quantum stochastic flows on a C-star algebra, which we viewed as a quantum analog of measure value diffusions. This took place in Nottingham in the summer of 1995, mainly in a seminar room, which was where much of the quantum stochastic calculus was discovered in collaboration between KRP and the late Hudson Robin Hudson. I vividly remember us filling blackboard after blackboard with calculations. We were striving for a quantum stochastic counterpart to the Evans, Christensen, Lindblad, Carini, Kosakowski, Sudarshan theorem, which many here gathered know well. I also remember sensing KRP's pleasure, utter pleasure at our successes in this endeavor on this hot summer. In the wonderful year I spent in India, based at ISI Delhi, KRP and Sharma took me into their family and their home. I got to know Ramesh and Harish, their sons. Ramesh was very young at the time. Harish was very young at the time. Ramesh used to play the flute in my rooms in the guest house with a lovely view of the Qutb Minar at that time. Hard to imagine now. So many memories. Like Sundar, I'm a bit choked with all the memories. So I want to end by saying something on the legacy of my precious contact with KRP. From 2007 to 2011, with KBS, we had a UK-India research collaboration. And in that collaboration, many of the descendants of KRP visited, and descendants of KRP and KBS came. It looks like we may have a resurgence of that through a Spark funded grant with Tirtha Bhattacharya. So many friendships and research collaborations have flowed from that wonderful time, that wonderful year. My deepest condolences to Sharma, Ramesh, and Harish. I will miss KRP very, very much.
I want to speak about 3 or 4 things. Everybody knows about his academic contribution. But one thing which is remarkable is KRP's simplicity and humility. Every day at 11 o'clock chai, he'd stand at the end of the line, whereas people would ask him to come forward and take his chai, but he never did. He waited his turn. Okay. And also remember him in his office. In his office, he had a table and everything, which I'll come to later, another story there. But he used to sit in a classroom chair with a little, the table attached to it, and with his fine fountain pen, write and Really beautiful handwriting, whatever he's working in. And when I came in, KRP's office and Kalyan Sinha's office, my office was right beside. So, I used to come in at 10, 10:30. And the next day I came in at 10, but they're still there. And then I realized that I had to come in at 9. Otherwise, they'll always be there before me. And they were, good 40 years older than me at that time. So they were there at 9 until 5:30 they were there. And being a neighbor, I also had to do that. Well, so maybe that made me work more. But well, I thank him for that. The next thing is his non-hierarchical attitude towards ISI and light in particular. So when I joined here, if you see the earlier books in the library, at the back, the library books used to come for the faculty member for recommendation. At the back, it was always written, recommended by Professor K. Parthasarathy, recommended by Dr. Rahul Roy. Doctor because I was an assistant professor. KRP once took a book and saw that. He immediately went to the librarian, who was Miss Arora at that time, and said, why do you have to write professor or doctor? We have names. Just write recommended by K.R. Parthasarathy. And ever since that, it stopped. It was recommended by the name. And then along the time when I joined, another colleague of ours who passed away 2 years ago, Professor Alok De, he also joined. And in his office, there wasn't any table, so a table was bought. And happened to be the biggest table, size-wise, at ISI. So Mr. Sabharwal at that time took it to KRP's office and said, we've come to take your table and give this. He said, but I didn't ask for a table. No, sir, this is the biggest table on campus, and you're senior most professor. He said, just give it to whoever asked for it. That's KRP's non-hierarchical attitude. The next thing is he was an academic encyclopedia by himself. So at 11 o'clock, just like Kalyan Sinha, he tried to also get me into non-commutative probability. I steadfastly refused. So, but at 11 o'clock chai, if I had some questions on random walk, which is classical probability, he'd listen with me in interest and then also tell me practically which chapter of Spitzer's book has it. So he had an encyclopedic memory. And not only that, about academics, he used to really encourage young people. I remember Kumarjit is here. He used to always ask me about Kumarjit's work, of his thesis. And finally, when Kumarjit, in a room nearby, presented his defense, KRP was the external, and he was very appreciating of his thesis. And finally, this is the last conversation which I had with KRP, which was 2 days before he passed away. And that's a request to everybody here. So he said he wanted a bust of academician Kolmogorov to be installed on our campus. I think that's, of course, a very good idea. And so it would be fitting if ISI and our friends online, if we can somehow come with an idea of having a bust of academician Kolmogorov on our campus. And thank you, of course. It's a great loss for ISI, an institute which KRP shaped. And I hope we can continue in the direction which he wants us to. Thank you.
Yeah, actually, of course, all of us knew KRP during our PhD days. When I was at the IFR, I heard about him. I just met him once when he visited, but actual interaction with him was when actually I joined here. So actually, as Rahul also mentioned, he has an encyclopedic memory, and it was always pleasure talking to him. Or in fact, I got to learn a lot from him. I was part of this KRP 75 conference for his 75, and during that time I had much more interaction, and in fact I got to learn many things from him. Actually, not only like he was good with his academics or his scholarship, but he has a keen understanding of things. He was always willing to talk to, willing to learn, and we were always awed by, it was always pleasure talking to him. So it's a great loss for ISI and also particularly for SMU, and he will be deeply missed. So rest in peace, KRP.
So, as many of you said, starting from Antarda and Martin, and then Raja, and of course Rahul, etc. He was a wonderful person and a great mathematician, and the non-hierarchical approach that he used to lead life with is a real inspiration. And I hope we can follow that footstep in all possible ways. I would just like to share a few, more than an anecdote, more of an experience, I would say, is that once I was visiting ISI Bangalore, this might be in 2015 or 14, I don't remember. KRP, his wife, they are both visiting here, and my son was very small then. He was about 4 years, maybe 3 years old. He used to run around all the time. He was quite a handful. And KRP, being the fantastic grandfather that he was, used to play with him. And, he had said a few things which now actually has turned out to be true. I mean, it just shows his insight and experience even about kids. So he said, after observing my son, that he would be a nature lover. And he indeed is. And also, both his wife and him were so kind to my son that he still remembers them. So when I told him that KRP has passed away, because he has met KRP again later on, so he was very sad as well. Also, apart from this, another thing that he said once. Okay, so two things. One is that he advised me as well as Shiva. Well, not Shiva, to me essentially, to come to Bangalore from Kolkata. And one of the main reasons why I took a transfer to Bangalore was this advice of KRP, which was a very good advice. Bangalore is now a center for stochastic processes. And also he asked Shiva to get me to ISI, which was even bigger honor for me. Shiva told me this and I was so honored to hear that. And he was always very kind towards junior people, as everyone said, and same with me. And another thing is that he said once that this is something I haven't been able to follow, but I would like to follow in the near future. He said that time I was in Kolkata, and he said, just pick up something and lecture to Devashish Goswami. Devashish Goswami is just one name. He could have given any other name, but then he said, and then I asked, why do you want me to do that? Then he said, oh, if you lecture to Devashish, he's not going to leave you easily. He's going to ask you every detail, epsilon delta of the proof, and thus you will learn. I haven't been able to follow this advice well, but hopefully in the near future, I'll be able to do that. I can learn something from Devashish Goswami through lectures. And also, of course, unlike Rahul Da, I have actually been able to do something to do with non-commutative stuff, where again, I had sent him the paper and he was very excited, where, it's not really quantum probability, but some non-commutative structure used as a tool in probability. So that's all because of KRP's inspiration. So thank you very much for this opportunity. And of course, it's a great loss for ISI, mathematics, academics in general, science in general, I would say. But the legacy that he is leaving, we are all part of it. And let's try to live up to it. And in particular, I would like to request the ISI administration to do something in his honor, maybe a lecture or something in his honor, so that the legacy can continue. Thank you very much.
Actually, my association with KRP goes almost 50 years, which is a very long time in anybody's career. So throughout my academic career, I knew him. And we were, as you know, we were the first batch of MStat in Delhi Center. So there were 4 students in our batch. And when we joined at that time, KRP was, I think, Antar missed one small detail in his career, that in between Bombay University and ISI, he was also at Delhi IIT for some time, maybe 1 year or some more. So when we joined, he was at Delhi IIT. And so I joined in the second year, 75, 76. And he gave us 2 courses, one in the first semester, one in the second semester. And we had to go through Patwaria Sarai and then jump over a wall. We found a shortcut and then attend his lecture and come back. So That was the first semester that he taught. And second semester, he was in ISI. He had joined ISI by then. And that course was in ISI. So the first course he taught, I don't remember the whole course. It was in functional analysis. But the very first lecture, I remember quite distinctly. So he defined what are called Banach spaces. And he ran through example after example, about 10 to 15 examples, one after the other, meticulously prepared. And they were all different kinds of examples. So I had never attended any such lecture before that, just based on the definitions and illustrations. So that was my first introduction to his lecture. And that continued throughout, so also during the second course and during many lectures that others have pointed out that he gave at ISI or seminars or some brief lectures. So all were meticulously prepared, and even writing on the blackboard, he was very particular. So if somebody wrote on some blackboard which is not clean, he will immediately stop and first ask that person to clean the blackboard completely and start on the left hand corner and then fill up the blackboard. So that was his. So in every small detail, he was quite particular. So when I joined Bombay University, then in between, I was there for 2 years. And the summer in between, I came to ISI just for a visit of 1 month, I think. And I just bought a ticket and came. There was no official invitation, official payment or anything. And that time, KRP was the head of the Delhi center. So I just went and saw him. And he said, "How did you come? What are you doing?" And I said, "I have just come here to discuss some mathematics and so on." So he immediately took out a piece of paper and wrote a fellowship of 1100. I still remember, for 1 month. He said, "You have this." And at that time, it covered my traveling expense as well as the living expense and everything. And I was not expecting that. So it was again quite a surprise that without any formality, he can do this. And later on also, he was keeping track of what I am doing. So when I joined, again, I went back to Bombay University and he inquired, and once he arranged a lecture, which was a sort of kind of interview lecture, you can say. Kalyan Mukherjee, many other people were there. And I talked about what I was doing at that time. And then by that time, Professor Ramachandran was the head. And so they all sort of were very nice to me and arranged essentially my position at ISI. And after that, KRG was throughout, although our areas didn't quite match that much, but he was always interested. He asked me for suggesting books on linear algebra, and then he was quite happy with some of our discussion and so on. And I think one more point I would like to mention is during tea, we had, I don't know, his tea conversations were great. I mean, he never repeated an anecdote. That I'm surprised even now, that even after so many years of telling stories about, and mostly about ISI and academics, he always had something new in his pocket. I mean, he would come up with something new about the same person and the same event, and also the general politics and general situation in India. And he resorted to Khadi quite some time back and followed it quite distinctly. So his lecture, his association, and having conversation with him at tea was more inspiring, or as well, at least as inspiring as classroom lectures. And he generally took interest in many other things, and that reflected in his general conversation and taking interest. My advisor, Professor Raghavan, actually was inspired because their difference is about 5 years in their age. And Raghavan always kept in touch with him. Very recently, in the last winter, Raghavan went to his house and they always had conversations about their earlier days and so on. Okay, so my condolences to his family. I think I'll end up with a small sloka in Bhagavad Gita. Jatasya hi dhruvam mrityur, dhruvam janmam mritasya cha, tasmad apariharyarthe, natvam shochitum arhasi. So may his Atma may rest in peace. Thanks.
I'll just take 2 minutes because I have an interview to attend. I was listening only. So it was really a great shock, and I still can't believe that I won't see him anymore. I mean, I think last saw him before COVID. That's quite a few years back, because these days I don't travel to Delhi much last few years. And I'm really sorry that I wouldn't have get chance to hear him or see him anymore. So what to say? I mean, as just Raja Das said, I think I have to say the same thing, that I owe my whole professional career to KRP and KV Sinha, and although Professor Sinha was my formal guide, I think KRP and KBS was both, basically they were like my supervisor, and I I was I knew him since my MStat second year days, when he taught us a harmonic analysis course. That was one of the greatest course I ever had. I mean, learned so many things, and from then onwards, of course, it was a long, unending journey. And I think till the end of my life, professional career, every time I do anything, I think I'm indebted to him in some way or the other. I mean, it's not just mathematically, but as a personally. I mean, I remember that how KRP taught me to write papers. My very first paper, that was on something on very much classical probability. A small contribution was published in Sankhya, and he was the editor. And he actually explained how to write papers. I mean, I remember that. I mean, that was the first interaction with him as a professional level. Okay, so of course, I mean, I think there is no point in telling about how great a mathematician he was. Everyone who was present here is well aware of it. And many people have already spoken about his personality. I mean, he was a great human being. I mean, such a humble and such a great person, kind, humble, and knowledgeable. I remember talking to him about so many things. I mean, literature, music, culture, and everything else. I mean, it's not just mathematics that he used to speak with us. My deep condolence to his bereaved wife and his other family members, and of course, I mean, his legacy is nationally and internationally is there to remain forever. So that's all I have to say. And I really miss him. That he used to call me Debu. So although I didn't see him for many last few years, maybe quite 5-6 years, but we had occasional email, and I mean, it's something really sad that I won't get those emails, starting with Dr. Debu and ending with KRP. It's really shock. I still could come out of it, and time will. Okay, so that's all I had to say, because I have to attend an interview. So I would love to listen to what other people say. I was listening, but unfortunately, I have to now join the interview. And thanks a lot for giving me an opportunity to come ahead in queue and say thanks all. Thanks a lot. Okay, that's all.
So I'm not in a position to talk about KRP's mathematics really, but I have to say that all of us, that KRP was a role model and an inspiration for all of us in the institute, not just for the people in the math stat department. In fact, like Rahul, my abiding memory of him is hunched over that student desk, working all the time. I mean, he used to be hunched over that desk, and I've never seen him, at his table. So he was always like that. And whenever my concentration flagged in my own office, or I, felt like playing table tennis in the student hostel, I would I would think of KRP working away, and then I would, it would help me focus again. So, I've had many conversations with KRP. while having lunch. Actually, not while having tea so much, but while having lunch. I remember having a conversation about C.V. Raman, and he told me in his inimitable way about C.V. Raman's experiment, and he said one of the great experiments in physics was not conducted in Göttingen or Cambridge, but on Beaubazar Street, Calcutta. And then a few days later, he actually came to my office and gave me an article written by Raman's assistant K.S. Krishnan about the experiments. And I read it with great enjoyment. And in fact, on more than one occasion, he has. He came to my office and gave me something to read. I shall, treasure those memories and my association with him. Not a deeply professional one as with many of you, but it's very sad day, and I feel really, what can I say? It's upsetting to realize that I shall not have his company again at lunch or at tea time. Thank you.
Today, I'm really remembering Professor KRP and my first day of joining the institute. When I joined the institute, he was the first person. I came at 9 o'clock. I was so young at that time. So the first man I met in the ISI was Professor KRP. Only his room was open in the whole corridor. All the rooms were locked. I was not knowing whom I should go and talk to and where to go, how I have to join. You can say in today's language, I'm a kid. I was 19 years at that time. So nowadays, 19 years child is in school and college first year. So he said, why don't you go and talk to Prakash Chandra? He will help you. He was head Delhi Center at that time. This was my first day memory with him. Then उनके साथ मैंने बहुत काम किया है. I used to type lot of letters, his manuscripts for बहुत सारा technical typing मैंने किया है. As Dr. Bhatia said that he was having very beautiful handwriting. Definitely, his writing was very beautiful. I'm still, that's his K and R. It's like मेरी आंखों के सामने चल रहे हैं अभी. Or he used to use even a small envelope which used to come to him. वो उसकी बैक में फ्रंट में लिख के दे देंगे. छोटा लेटर है तो एनवलप में लिख के दे देंगे, किसी में ये टाइप करके दे दीजिए. कोई कागज, कोई लेटर आया है, कुछ पेपर है, उसका बैक भी यूज करते थे. यूज टू यूज इवन अ सिंगल पीस ऑफ पेपर, कुछ भी वेस्ट नहीं करते थे. एक और मेरे दिमाग में आ रही है, एक बारी मैं हेड दिल्ली सेंटर में के लिए पीए का काम कर रही थी. तो एक हाउसकीपिंग स्टाफ क्लीन कर रहा था, तो बाई चांस कोई पेन गिर गया होगा. तो उस वक्त कोई मेरे वहां पे जो पियन थे, तो उसने उनको ये बोला कि ये जो पिन गिरा है ना, दिस पिन मेड मी परमानेंट इन दिस ISI. आई जॉइंड ISI एज ए टेम्परेरी एम्प्लॉय एंड ये पिन गिरा हुआ था, तो मैंने उठा के KRP साहब को उठा दे दिया था. तो उनके दिमाग में वो रह गया था कि ये बहुत ISI के लिए लॉयल बंदा है. और इसने आज देखिए पिन नीचे, और हार्डली पिन हम लोग कभी केयर नहीं करते, कहीं भी गिरा देते हैं. तो छोटी छोटी मेमोरीज हैं उनके साथ मेरी. आई रियली remembering him. May God rest his soul in peace.
Today, when we are remembering KRP, last few days actually, lots and lots of small anecdotes, memories have come up in my mind. Many of us, we have heard about his humility, his academics, his energy to do academics, which many of us have witnessed here, all of us mostly. He retired in 1996, and as Professor Bandyopadhyay mentioned, he used to come regularly to the office and work till the pandemic stopped that. I think it was
quality of his generation and worth emulating for all of us. It was an honor, like many of us, once again, that I was a student of his. I learned a lot from him. I also was honored to have an editorial collaboration with him, including collected works of SRS Vardhan. But as I said, lots of memories, but I will just mention one. Namely, when I joined here as an MStat student, at that time we used to have what was called freshers welcome in the auditorium, and for which all faculty along with all students would be present, and there would be some light leg pulling of the incoming students. Lots of questions by just asking. I mean, each new student would go like I'm standing here, and people would just ask some questions, just some kind of leg pull. And I remember what KRP asked another incoming student, what is your favorite theorem? So I think that for me, I mean, it was a culture shock. It was as big a culture shock as coming from home to a hostel from Bombay to Delhi. It was a culture shock for me in the way mathematics is to be pursued. It's theorem being a favorite thing was foreign to me at that time. But that, I think, sort of told me that mathematics could be fun. It also told me the enthusiasm he had for mathematics. And of course, at the same time, he was serious about his mathematics. And he taught us stochastic calculus in the 4th semester, and all of these qualities were there in abundance throughout the semester. And in that, another thing I remember in that course, he used to tell that it's a game, mathematics is a game, learn to enjoy it and play it. And I hope I've been able to do that. Yeah, thank you. Rest in peace, K.
I came to Delhi ISI as a student in 1989 and as a second year student. KRP first taught us in our second semester, which was 1990, and since then it has been a long association. Too many memories, and it would be difficult for me to go over them while retaining my composure. So I'll just say a few words on what immediately comes to my mind when I think of KRP. What immediately I remember is the course that he taught us in our second semester. As Professor Bapat said, in the classroom, he was like a magician. His use of the blackboard, his every movement, it would seem like it's well thought out, completely planned to the last details and executed perfectly. In between talking math, he would also in the class often give us small life lessons. So, and he would use quotations very effectively. So one such I still remember. So in one class, he was just telling us that when opportunity arises, it doesn't announce it. You have to be alert and you have to grab it. And then he quoted someone. When opportunity comes, it's hardly louder than a heartbeat. Few lectures later, again in the class. So his class would be full of exercises. If I look at my notes, I looked at it last week again. It's every line, every other line, it's one exercise after another. So he gave us one exercise few lectures later. Then he told us this is still open, unsolved. And then after a pause, he said, opportunity knocks. And then he moves on to the next. he would encourage us to learn different topics, different areas in mathematics. And that continued even after that course when I joined him as his PhD student. And that is something that had a huge influence on me. That is what shaped how I look at mathematics ever since then. And the other thing that I remember, again, something Debashish mentioned. So when I gave him the first handwritten manuscript of my first paper for his suggestions, after a few days, maybe after 2-3 days, he gave it back to me. And what I got back was a complete lesson on how to write mathematics. So just like his lectures, he was extremely meticulous about his writing. And unfortunately, I didn't keep a copy. I wish I had kept a copy of that. That was really, yeah, I'll stop here.
My name is Thanjavur, and I was in ISI Delhi for 2 years working with KRP during 2019 and 21. Though I was a student of Rajarama Bhatt at ISI BC, my PhD problem was defined by KRP. I am fortunate enough to have spent 2 years with KRP at ISI Delhi. During those days at ISI, I used to meet KRP for 2 days a week. He would come 2 days, Tuesdays and Fridays, and he would make sure that I have more than enough to work for the rest of the week. And in my 20s, I struggled to match the intensity that this 80-year-old man brought. I really struggled. I was running behind every day just to match his intensity. We proved a few theorems in my first year there, and we started writing it. I told him the first day of, when we decided that, okay, let's write this down. I told him that, okay, I will write it in a week or two, and then we can submit to the journal. Then he said, no. This is the time we really polish our work, and it will take more than 2 weeks, he said. And it turned out that we were writing that single article for next 1 year. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I will have to report him what I wrote, and he would meticulously correct every single word, grammar, English, mathematical exposition, everything. And it was a great experience for me to polish writing, how to write mathematics, how to talk mathematics. And generally, the chai conversations with him, me and my wife, Gayatri, also used to join him for the chai and the kind of life lessons he gave us. So really immense gratitude I have to him and his family, especially Shama Ma'am. My life can be divided into 2 parts, before KRP and after KRP. It is touched forever. There is not a single day passes by without having some fond memories of KRP. I really thank from the bottom of my heart. I can't express how much I thank him, how much I owe him. I am really indebted to him. Not only me, my family, my wife is also would like to say the same thing. Thank you, KRP, and thank you to his family. Thank you, ISI.
We'll end the meeting here today. Thank you all